Welcome to No Excuses. We are going to do something a little bit different today. Should be fun, and it might explain some of the stuff around the house. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk you around our property. We actually bought this property about 2 years ago. We actually came to see this property because of one feature, and then we liked the property. And there's a lot of potential with this property, so we decided to buy it. And we have grand plans. Now, the last couple years have been crazy, and we haven't gotten things done because, you know, Jason had an accident with his axe. My mom, I've been spending a lot of time there. And this year, I had already decided at the beginning of this year that this is the year we are really going to start developing our property, our homestead. And so I'm very excited because I've ordered a couple of the things that we need. It'll be a slow process because money is tight, but that's okay. So it's just going to be a slow thing. I just bought strawberries. I'm so excited because I want my strawberry patch. And Jason wanted blueberries, so we have a couple blueberries. We'll talk about those at a future time. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you down to the beginning of the property at the one entrance, and we're going to just walk the property. I'll show you some of my ideas and some of the things that we're doing. And you know what? If you guys have any ideas of what I need to be doing, let me know in the comments because, hey, we are open for suggestions. So let me walk down to the other end of the property and we'll walk from end to end. So I am taking the dog. This should be interesting because, you know, she's a lunatic sometimes. So I'm actually stopping. We actually have a driveway. It comes up and we have a yard here. It is a circular driveway. And don't really have any plans for down here. This is a lot of shady because that is a catawba tree. And it is large and it is shady. But we do have a circular driveway here that we use. And this is our main driveway that we use. It is the easiest way to get into the house. And this is where we use it. And plus there's room for both of our cars to swing around. Now this is our backyard. Our backyard is going to need some work. Right now you can see it is a narrow backyard. We planted all of these arborvitae because we know that they will be building behind us, so we wanted to have trees built. And the backyard is looking like a mess because we have an 100-pound Newfie who likes to run, so it is a muddy mess. Eventually we would like steps that go down leading to a deck. And yeah, I want a hot tub. So yeah, if you guys want to donate to the hot tub fund, I would love it. But anyway, we actually have here. So we come around this way, Zoe. So we actually come around here and the driveway goes the whole way around. Now up here on this top section, we don't have any set in stone plans, but I have been toying with putting a couple fruit trees here. I was thinking apple, we actually would need two because of pollination, a peach and pear. Now that is something that would be happening somewhere in the future. I would love it to be this year. I don't know that that'll happen. Now over here, our yard drops off and we actually have a drop off over here, and that outside area is very, very weedy. It is very, very yucky, and I've been pondering what to do with it. And I actually have, you know, I was looking at a couple different options, stuff like ground covers. And what I think I'm going to do is actually a creeping thyme, because not only is it flowers and pretty, but creeping thyme is edible. It's not the best creeping thyme for that, but I don't use a lot of thyme, so it would actually be perfect for what I need. So we're gonna go around the front of the house here. And this is one huge bed, and we have debated on it. I have a couple irises in it, and there's some ivy here at the top. But we have debated about what to do with it. And we have actually just this year decided that we're just going to go ahead and do this as our strawberry bed. Excuse me, not flowers. We're going to do our strawberries here. It would be close to the house. It would be perfect. You know, do we want flowers in the front? Yeah, it would look nice, but we're using what we have ready, what we have here. And, you know, like I said, it's close to the house. It would be easy to water, easy to do everything. So let's keep going. So our front deck is right here, and good job, Zozo. Took her a while to learn that. And it's a long, narrow deck, not too narrow, probably about 8 feet wide, and it's probably a good 20 to 30 feet. And it gets full sun, so we don't actually use it a whole lot. So my grand plan would be to build shelves on the inside of the rail, right here at the top, just a little bit lower, with a little bit of a basin. And I would love to turn this into a container garden for herbs. It would be wonderful because I could actually just pop out here when I wanted to, cut whatever herb I needed, because I'd be popping out the one door, cut the herb I needed. It would be fabulous. So that is a long-term plan for here. Don't have the money for the wood at this point, but that is a long-term plan. Maybe this year we'll get some of them built. So down front, we actually have the reason we actually came to see this house. We actually came because this house was listed as a house that had a cave. And we came to see the cave, and then we liked the property, and we're like, okay, and the house is in good shape. We want to change some things inside, but you know, the house is in good shape. And so we ended up liking the property, and we ended up buying it, all because of the cave. We will come back to that later, because that's a good, 10, 15 feet down. So let's go around. This is the side yard. Well, one of the side yards. And this yard actually is like one of my favorite places, because in the summer, that stand of trees gets very thick. And then up here, there is a stand of fir trees. And so this is kind of like a little private garden. It gets very lush, very green, and it's usually shaded. I always like when I end up mowing this section because it's in the shade. Going back around to the back of the house, where we've now traversed the whole length of the house, and we are coming back around so you can see that our backyard, our muddy backyard, is right here. Now we come up from our backyard, and there is a wonderful path. And this was way grown up and not looking good when we got it, but it is there. We have some flower beds on either side. My mother-in-law calls this the green mile. And so we actually have the green mile. We come a little ways up the green mile, and we have this trapezoid shape of a concrete pad. Not really sure what somebody would do with a trapezoid shaped concrete pad, but we have one. I was thinking possibly maybe the hot tub here at one point. Not too far from the house, maybe about 20 feet, well, maybe 50 feet, I don't know. So we've talked about doing that here. Not really sure what we're going to do with this. We've talked about a small shed. We've talked about a lot of things. We did have Zoe's pool here for a while last year, but she prefers it in the backyard out in the sun. So this is kind of a shady space, so not really sure. But anyway, we're going to walk back down. Do love the fact that I have an old-fashioned tree swing. But we're going to walk back down the green path, the green mile. We have a lot of these trees. They're fabulous. The good story about them is that apparently one of the people that lived here before wanted trees, so he went up into the woods and he dug up some of the trees that they were using for reforestation. So when you get here, you see that the path does divide, and you go around a little bit of a flower bed, which we have been working on. You can see that we have been clearing out brush. This property was rented for quite a few years. And that said, all the trees that lose their limbs, they just kind of threw them in piles behind the shed, piles under trees, piles everywhere. And it's been a royal mess to clean up. So we almost always have a big pile of brush here that we are working on cleaning out. We have big fires, and we burn a lot. Eventually we will be done with the heavy burning, and we'll actually be able to enjoy our fire pit for what it was intended for fun picnics and stuff. Right now you can see we have tried to burn our Christmas tree 2 different times. We've added kerosene on it. That sucker just didn't want to burn. Go figure. So anyway, we have a fire pit with some seats. We also have this overheaded pavilion. Needs a little bit of work, but it has a new roof, so it is in good shape, and it's a great place. Come on, Zoe, let's go this way. So coming back, the green mow actually ends right here at the end of where the fire pit is, and you can see that we're in the shade here, so I got to go through some snow. And coming up here, when we moved in, this area in front of me where there are leaves, that was originally, when we moved in, a burn pile. And that first year we actually had moved in at the end of May. And you know, it was middle of June and we're like, oh man, we didn't plant anything. And we actually saw a couple plants that were there, scraggly looking, but we decided to go ahead and buy them. And we planted 3 things in the garden that first year. We amended the soil as much as we could. We've put in all kinds of stuff, and we had 3 plants that did fabulous. Now last year we actually dug out a little bit more. I think it's like 12 by 20 at this point, something like that, give or take. And we had quite a few more plants. Right now I have leaves on top of it. It's just composting down. We'll till those in a couple months. We do hope to expand the garden this year. We have some grand plans. We have some other things, and Zoe loves the winter because I let her into the garden. She's not allowed into it at any other time. So we see we have actually more space down there that we can actually expand the garden, and we do plan on expanding it. We also have all of this area right here. I would love to build some raised beds and just have rows of raised beds down this area. So between this way, we have a little walkway between the backyard and the middle yard. And you can see that one of the first things I did when we moved in is I started compost piles. Now at first, that first year, I didn't have time to do much, so I basically did them as compost piles. Last year I did add in 2 bins, and I have leaves and stuff that I'm throwing in them. The 2 piles on the outside are actually compost that's almost ready. By the compost bins, we actually have a bunch of raspberry canes. This was one of the features that I was so tickled about on this property, that we already have existing raspberries, so that is fabulous. Okay, going back up and back around the back end, past the compost pile. Like I said, I would love this to be a garden at some point with lots of raised beds, just building, growing. So we do have room for growth here. So they've actually put a retaining pond in since we actually came in. Not a bad thing. We've actually talked about getting ducks because eventually there will probably be water in this, and well, ducks would give us eggs. In this stand of brush, there is blackberries, actually. Only 1 or 2 little plants, but you know, they're still there. Coming this way, I'm walking down the perimeter of our property. So coming down this way, we have our shed. When we actually first came here, the shed was in really bad shape in the back. This whole lean-to had to be taken down. I burned it 1 piece at a time. You can see we have a lot of brush that's still back here. There are some raspberry canes in that, but not too many, but we have a lot of brush that needs to be still removed. So the barn is here. We've actually done some work on it to shore it up. We've actually repainted it. That was our vacation this past year. We repainted it. I actually think it's actually an adorable little shed. What I didn't mention is we do have those raspberry canes up there, and we do have the blackberry bush back there. What I didn't mention is behind the house, behind the shed, we actually have a huge mulberry tree, which does drop mulberries, and I did pick quite a few last year. That is, however, that tall one right there is not the largest mulberry tree we have. We actually have a huge mulberry tree right here. This one is probably going to have to be trimmed once they add in the houses, because this is right on the edge of our property. But this mulberry tree was fantastic last year. It drops mulberries like you would not believe. So yes, I made mulberry syrup, I made mulberry jam, we did mulberry cobblers, we did mulberry, a little bit of everything. So it was awesome. And we do have some other mulberry trees. I can point some out. There's one in the backyard, and there's one up at the corner of the house. So we actually have that. This front yard is actually very rocky. So the rock is very, very close to the surface. Once again, this is something that I've thought about. If we ever need to expand from the back of the shed down here with gardening, we would actually do raised beds. We would need to put fences up because I don't trust people off the road, but we would actually have land for a raised bed. Now, when we were painting the shed, Jason kept talking about how he could get his llama and put his llama in there. Not really sure about the llamas, but you know, it's a good thing. Now, we have actually talked about chickens, and probably the chickens will build a chicken coop on the side of the barn, or at the back of the barn. One of those. So we will probably have some chickens here at some point. I also want some bees. We haven't figured out where they're going to go yet, but I do want bees. We've talked about up on top where I was talking about where those trees might go, and which is kind of above the cave area. So here is the lower look at the middle of the yard. I call this the mid yard. And now we come back down to the other aspect of the property that I thought was like so really cool when we actually bought it. And this is the grove. We have a grove of walnut trees on our property. Now there are a whole bunch of volunteers. I think we have probably about 10 more volunteer walnut trees around on the property that we can pick nuts from. But down here we do have a mixture of hickory, we have some butternut, and we do have some walnut. Once again, the property was actually rented, and you know, renters really did not take care of the trees. So I've been doing some pruning this winter. We talked about that recently, and we will actually be fertilizing the trees here within the next couple months. You want to fertilize them right as they're budding. But we have a bunch of trees down here. They are mixed. They are probably a little too close together, but we are working with them and trimming them out so that they can actually prosper. We are actually also battling walnut husk flies, and that we actually have made a dent in the walnut husk fly population to get rid of them. But that is something else we're battling, and it was basically due to partly the fact that the property was left alone by renters. And you can see I have a lot of limbs down, so I'll be picking those up in the next day or two. I usually pick them up on our walks. So now we're actually down to the lower driveway, and you see up there is the deck where I would love to do a potted herb garden. And we actually don't use this driveway very often. It is a blind driveway, and it is on a hill, so it's not very safe to get in and out of. It is the driveway I have been shoveling and that we have been snow blowing. The steps in the front are not the best steps to get into the house because they're just good old-fashioned stone. But you know what? It does work, and we do have an entrance in at the bottom. Now here is the cave. We are 99% sure at this point that this was a lime kiln. We are on a lot of lime here, and it is kind of cool. It has been shored up, and there is concrete block in there to make it secure and stable. And when you actually duck in and go in, there is a room probably about 10 by 30. We've actually talked about using it different ways. It would make a fabulous root cellar if I had doors on it. But right now we are using it as a wood storage for our fireplace. And you can see that the wood is right inside the door there. And when we get a cord of wood brought next year, we will actually be taking it the whole way in and using it that way. In the last couple of years, we've actually done hyacinth beans growing up the cave. But this year, I think we are actually going to put in some beans, edible beans. Hyacinth beans are not really edible, so I think we're going to do some edible beans and let some edible beans grow up. It's one of those things that we are going to try to make the most. We like the pretty flowers and we like that, but we are wanting to make the most of our property and try using what we have, and without having to dig more beds and buy more stuff, we actually have the perfect place to grow beans. So we are probably going to put some beans growing up our hill. And there you have it, the beginning of the homestead. So there you go. We have a lot of work to do, don't we? I would love it if you actually told me some of your ideas now that you've seen our property. No excuses.